Okay, testing. Let's see. How's that audio looking?
Testing. You know how loud I am?
Yeah, you're a little loud.
I was standing in the doorway of the radio station the other day talking to the theater tech guy, and he gets a phone call on his phone from the professor who's in the theater.
Yeah.
Are you talking to Darin? Because I could hear his voice. I'm like, am I that loud? And he's like, oh, yeah, you're loud.
Yeah, I mean, you talk louder than the average person, but I don't think that's a bad thing.
I don't know.
It's better than being like a quieter person, I think.
That's what I think. But then I was like, wait, I'm me, so I could be wrong.
Yeah.
Anyway, I've derailed the intro to your show.
No, it's no problem. Welcome, everyone. This is Christian Blaney's Cockpit. My name is Christian Blaney, and today I have Darin Pierce on, who is, what's your official title, Darin?
Yeah, that's kind of you to ask.
Yeah.
We wouldn't know. I hang out. I'm just around, and nobody knows for sure. But it's on the wall by the door, on the little name plaque, and it says PIR Station Manager / Media Services Technical Developer.
Okay.
So, and it's all there's a long explanation there, but the bottom line is somebody needs to run the radio station, but they couldn't make it a full-time job.
Yeah.
And then the event guy down at Media Services, who just does all the events and stuff, that job had exploded up. Somebody has to buy new equipment and get rid of old equipment and figure out how to solve problems and all that. And that event guy was the only guy that could do that because he had the knowledge. But that's way too much work. So they realized there was like a half a job's worth of stuff there too.
Sure.
So then they decided to put the two together and make a job, and I happened to come along at the right time, and I was like, yeah, I could do all that stuff.
That's great.
And so I started in April of 12 doing that.
Of 2012?
Yes.
Wow.
I worked
You've been here for a while then.
Well, yeah, and I worked here before as the event guy. It was called the production. What was it called? I don't know. The Cox Auditorium Manager / production technician. Something like that. In 2000 and 2003, I was doing what the current event guy is doing now.
Oh, cool. Nice.
So,
well, the reason
that's my title.
That's fine.
Principia. So when people ask me, like for applications and stuff, I just put radio station manager.
Okay.
Or technical developer, one of those two things, whichever is better useful for that particular application.
Sure. It feels like just if I need help with anything
Right.
in this general part of campus, I can ask you about it and you'll know what to do.
Yeah. When you put a college with technical developer, people get the idea.
Sure.
And they have no idea whether you're IT or AV or any of that. That's completely vague.
Yeah.
But it's general that you're a techie type.
Sure.
And that's all that's needed.
Sure.
I think.
Well, the reason I wanted to get you on is because, in my opinion, you're more than just someone that can work on technology. I like the way you think, and you're very, very easy to talk to, and not worried about just seeing the direction that society might be going, and preparing for whatever that might, whatever that might mean.
Whatever that might mean.
Yeah, exactly.
I have no idea.
Yeah. So on my last show, actually, since I didn't have a guest, I said, "Hey, Darin, could you fill in for like 30 or so minutes for the last part of my show?" And actually, it was tough to end the show because we were having such a good conversation. So I thought it might make sense to put you on for another episode if you would have it. And you said yeah.
So. Oh, I totally felt the same way. I could talk forever.
Yeah. No, me too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just once you find a topic that makes sense, you just kind of go with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm wearing kind of a wacky outfit right now. My sleeves are super tight and the body's really loose.
You're a cyclist.
Yeah, it feels like it. It's a surfing rash guard.
Oh, of course.
I wear it for jiu-jitsu.
Right on.
But because I had to do laundry today, and I was like, oh dang, I'm out of shirts. And so this works enough for me because it's not too warm out where I can really wear a t-shirt, so I'm wearing a jacket.
As long as you're wearing a mask, you don't have to wear any other clothes.
Yeah, exactly.
You just walk around shirtless.
I mean, it'd be more acceptable than not for sure. Have you heard of Lowry naked lunches?
That's something that I was heard. It was crossed my radar, but I paid no attention to trying to understand what's going on there. Yeah,
and we're thinking about bringing it back. So it's pretty much like just a bunch of Lowry guys, either the board or just an extended version of the board.
Mm-hmm.
We'll just go into lunch and sit in lunch with just like underwear and our mask on, and that's just something that we do. And so a lot of us didn't really know that would happen because it's just right outside of the 4-year range. Yeah. So for people that don't know, I'm in a house called Lowry, and we're just kind of like to say it in the best way. We're just the house that is that helps you re-experience your childhood. you just stay young really, really easily.
Is that the explanation?
That's probably the best way to put it.
You're probably right. Rowdy boys.
Rowdy boys. Yeah, that's a good way to. We do run around campus yelling the name of our house.
Yeah.
Carrying our flag.
It's the very I've always thought it was. That's why I haven't paid too much attention to it. It's the very Principia version of that.
Yeah.
Because you're still like moderate and not pushing the boundaries of law and inappropriateness. And I don't know. And sure, it has maybe happened. I don't pay too much attention. But in general, no one's worried about it too much, and it's cool and fun because we know that nothing like crossing whatever line I'm referring to is going to happen.
Yeah. We think about riding the line just as much as we need to.
Sure.
I don't really know the best way to put it, but yeah, we try to be respectful to other people, but at the same time mess them just enough to make their life a little more interesting than it might be normally.
Well, I'm sure you have one rogue person every now and then that does something stupid.
We have that actually like recently. We have that pretty much every semester, but it's not necessarily a good representation of us.
Yeah. I've thought about, not to expand on that too much, you probably didn't want to, but I intended to and did spend my first half of my adult life as a touring musician. And I played college towns up and down the East Coast. Was one of the bands I was with, and we played fraternity parties and shows like that, which was common. So East Coast, Blackburn University, stuff like that, Virginia, fraternity parties. And that's like, quote unquote, the real world. Like when there was a naked run there, it was a naked run.
It was a naked run.
Yeah, and we actually were set up in the basement of this fraternity house, and we're getting ready to sound check in the band and everything. And all of the freshman pledges, like there must have been 20 of them or more, all come crowding around in a big circle, down completely naked.
Yeah.
And we're just like all like around us, and we're just like waiting for this all to end. And then they all get all riled up and screaming and yelling. They all go running out the back door, and they would run all over campus. So when I hear about Lowry doing a naked run or a naked lunch, I know that's not going to happen.
It's not exactly that.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. And that's the difference. And when I first started back here again in 12, I even asked just to be sure. I said, do they really? Like, oh, no. As if to say, like, of course not. No. And so that's an interesting point of demarcation, that the mindset of a Principian, maybe it's a small institution, maybe it's the religious, but maybe it's just the idea that even if there's a few people that would do that, and maybe that has happened or whatever, it would be deemed by the majority as inappropriate and unnecessary. It's just like, it's not cool, man. And I'm not sure why that is, but
I'm not sure either. I think like we aren't trying to make anyone uncomfortable.
Right.
And we know that, like, if we were to be completely naked, not that we wouldn't do that, because I think the majority of the guys in that house, like, at least in our current, was like, yeah, we could run around naked.
You would do it, yeah.
It's okay. But yeah, we don't want to make the campus uncomfortable, because I think one part of it, as you were trying to figure out, like, why that would be, I think it's because it's such a small campus. Everyone knows everyone.
Right.
So if I'm running around, everyone knows what my junk looks like. It might be a little awkward in my math class.
That might be I hadn't considered that. That might be.
Well, that's a huge thing. Like my.
No pun intended.
Yeah. I have a couple friends back in Maryland, and they're in frats, or some of them are, and they just see college life like really, really differently from how I do, just because like I'm from 400 people on the campus, something like that.
Yep, less than now.
And they have, they're University of Maryland, Frostburg University, like Penn State, stuff like that. It's a totally different scene. No one really knows who you are.
Exactly.
No one
That's
really
it
does.
right there. The anonymity.
Anonymity.
That one. Yeah. I always got that confused with Amityville Horror.
What is that?
The word anonymity, like see an enemy. Like an anonymity. And Amityville.
Yeah.
Those are words I used to mix up. Like,
just to see an enemy that no one knows about.
Yeah, well,
that would be a tough word.
It's just those words and how they're said.
Yeah.
They remind me of each other. That was a stupid digression. Sorry.
No, it's not bad. That's fine. I think any digression's all right in this
Well,
this show. We're just talking.
Yeah,
Like, you know.
although it would be nice to have a string of some continuity. But how did we get you brought up the Lowry Naked Lunch, bringing it back. I don't even know how we got to that.
Yeah, no, I think I just brought it up. I'm not sure. I mean, obviously there's always some path, but I don't think that it's necessary to, I guess, go down why I say everything.
I didn't
that
know
I
if we were
say.
going somewhere with it.
No. But last time, actually, we can digress from that. But last time we were talking about the situation with free speech and social media,
Right.
And whether or not like things that you post on social media should be owned by you or the company, or
Yes.
should be regulated by the government, or what's going on with that. Yeah.
I have thought a lot about it since we spoke last.
Really? Yeah.
Because I think about it passively all the time. But because we spoke about it, I was like, I should think about this, because it's possible that I could talk about it without thinking about it and get to the end of my thoughts and go, oh, actually, I'm totally wrong.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
let me think this through. And then the second thing is I realized, I listened back to our show and I was like, oh, you're talking. I listened to the part of the show that I hadn't heard before. You were talking about Gina Carrera situation.
Yeah.
Because
Are you following that?
No, not. I don't. Well, again, I have to reiterate. I don't follow anything or broadcast media or Facebook or social media or any of that stuff. I just pull up, like I watched a stupid movie on Amazon last night, but I pull up YouTube videos that I want to learn something about, and that fills all of my time in audiobooks. That's it. So I don't. And if it happens, if I see something, it's headline only, like in my emails or whatever. This Post Dispatch headline. I might read an article or something, but there's too much, so I don't know anything.
That's pretty much how I work as well.
Yeah.
I heard about the Gina Carrera thing from my buddy.
Yeah. So I knew that something happened. I didn't know what until I listened to your show at the beginning. Oh, that's what the thing was about. And then I also realized that you filled me in the show by saying about Star Wars, which I totally forgot. I didn't make the connection that Mandalorian is what you were talking about, because I didn't think of the Mandalorian as being Star Wars.
It's
but
canon.
Of course it is. Of course it is. So when you said Star Wars, and so I was just thinking like, Mark Hamill, and I wasn't thinking that story. So I was like, oh, duh, of course, that's right. So that's how ignorant and out of touch I am. But it caused me to think about it. Then once I caught up with what you were talking about and what you were getting at in social media and free speech, Gina Carrera, then I was like, okay, let me think this all through and completely frame my thoughts. And God, I would love to sit.
Did you look over it more than what I talked about by any chance?
No, I didn't even. I didn't even look it up.
Yeah,
I don't even know. I don't. I hesitate to say it, but it's true. I don't really care about the specifics of her case. Where my thought went, and where it always is, and what I was trying to clarify is that. What is the deal? And I listen to a lot of Jordan Peterson, so I have to admit to that.
No, it's okay. I've watched a lot of his stuff too.
Yeah, and so it's really about analysis about where the truth lies with what we're talking about with regard to free speech, social media, separate words,
Sure,
put together. I mean, like media, like movies and entertainment, and social, like people talking to each other and being friends. Put those two things together. Now, social media as a platform for delivery of ideas, social media, and how that relates to free speech, and where is the demarcation of speech not being free, like, and so that idea, I fully thought about that, and so there's a couple things that came to mind that was like, okay, and I'm not sure what's right. And I realized that I could talk to an expert, and we could talk to many different people and get a lot of different ideas on it, but this is one of those things where I don't know that there's a definitive landing point on the issue. It's just something that's a thing to be discussed. And I don't even necessarily... I'm not sure where Jordan Peterson stands today, because he has to have evolved on this a little bit, but of course it made him famous. But he was specifically talking about compelled speech, meaning the government saying what you can or can't say.
Yeah, the title, the Section 6 in Canada.
Right.
That was his problem. For those of you that don't know, really quick, Jordan Peterson is a psychologist.
Yeah, he's a clinical psychologist and professor, right?
Yeah, at University of Toronto. I don't know if he still has his job there, but he's been in the media spotlight for at least since I was in high school because of his stance against like Nazi rallies, I think, or like anti-Nazi rallies at University of Toronto, and he said he didn't really see any Nazis around, and that he thinks it's it's dangerous to say people that are Nazis that aren't Nazis, and
Right.
And stuff like that. And so he went on and he gained a lot of traction just because of I think he's trying to clarify things, but the way he speaks about it might be controversial in some way. So a lot of people see him as a right wing spokesperson, but I think even more than that, he's just someone that's interested in free speech, in the difference between what people have agency over, like the citizens, and what the government should have agency over.
That's right, and that's what even the Gina Carrera thing is. I mean,
yeah.
So here's that's right. The bottom line is, where's the demarcation of when something is no longer free speech? Is it when the government says you can and can't, what you can or can't say? Is that no longer free? I think we'd say yeah. Well, but what about if it's an entity that's not the government, like YouTube or Facebook? What if they say,
or in this case, Disney?
In this case, Disney. What if they say, no, you can't say that? Because those entities don't have the ability to enforce you can't say that at all, but they can enforce you can't say that on our platform. So is that censorship? And is there a difference between censorship and not having free speech? This is where it starts to get weird. Weird's the wrong word, but it starts to get segmented, maybe fractionalized, and you start to branching off into different topics that can get intertwined, and then it's all confusing. So I think it's safe to say that if the government were to write a law that says what you can and can't do, that's infringing on rights, for the better or worse, depending on what we're talking about. So now the question is, because Peterson got all up in arms when YouTube took down his videos, and he got that worked out. But his point is, he's saying that that's a slippery slope. If you start taking down this, what's next and what's next? And now you're manipulating society or whatever to only see the stuff that your platform, which might be massively powerful, lets through. So we've got these platforms that become massively powerful, and they exist to make money. They want to make as many people like their platform as possible. So they're going to set up guides so that they can have advertisers and money, and everybody can use it. The more people use it, the more money they make, and that's the whole point.
With the advertisement,
right. It's capitalism. It's all about that. They're not about government. They're not about censorship. They're about existing and becoming as big and dominant as they can, for better or worse. Again, but the point is, they're going to have guidelines which facilitate that. So if somebody does or says something that's like, oh, geez, that's going to cause more people than we want to not like our platform, then maybe we should do away with that. Because our goal is simply to make money. That's it. I mean, it's like, and we know that platforms that have allowed, that tried to be, like Tumblr or even Quora, when they let people post nude pictures and stuff like that, that just proliferates, man, and then you might think, well, we want to let people do whatever they want, and it does bring people to the site, but it's like then the whole thing has become it's got a bad kind of, so they decide to censor that because of the human nature of the phenomenon of that. So in the same way that they want to filter out that kind of stuff, a YouTube or a Facebook might want to they're going to have guidelines that they adhere to for a good reason. But where does that cross the line of becoming censorship or saying what someone can or can't say? And we have to point out that they're not saying that people can't say it. They're saying they can't say it on their platform.
Well,
is that okay? And someone might say, well, if their platform is dominant to the degree that it is affecting, the public view, then maybe it is a problem. Does the government step in then and say that they can't do that? Well, that might be a problem too. And we also have this other phenomenon of being controversial. Actually, no publicity is bad publicity. I mean, Gina Carrera is probably more famous than she ever was just by being on The Mandalorian because of this.
Yeah, right
and she
now.
shows up on Ben. Yeah, right now. And she's on Ben Shapiro's thing, and she's, her face is everywhere.
Oh, is she?
Yeah. I mean, it just, I don't even, again, I don't watch it. I just see it come up on the feed. Gina Carrera, whatever,
Yeah.
Ben Shapiro, there you go. And it's not that any of that's intentional. I'm just saying, if one platform says, no, you can't do this here, well, you can go find another platform. You can start and you might say, well, the other platform's not as powerful as your platform. To which the powerful platform would say, Right. Well, I there's nothing I can do about that. The reason we are powerful and popular is because we have guidelines that keep us with the most people liking what we do. That's the entire point.
Yeah.
So Peterson actually tried to, I don't know where this, I didn't follow up to see but he started his own platform called Bixby or something. Maybe it's something else. But if you look at it, he decided he wanted to start his own, it was in beta, his own like platform for people to post articles about stuff or write and stuff like that, and have it be uncensored, freedom, open speech. And he ran into that. He ran into the problem right away. He even talked about it on one of his podcasts. He was like, "People, you're going to have crazy people. You're going to have the troll likes.
Yeah.
You're also going to have just stupid people.
Yeah.
And they what's the word I'm looking for? They're a detriment to the platform." But you can't censor them if the very nature of the platform is non-censorship. It's like, what do I do? I'm thinking that he would know this himself, and I don't know what they did about it. But what he realized is you can't have an unfiltered platform and have it not be infiltrated by malevolence and stupidity, or both.
I think, no, I get it.
And so it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
So this brings me back to the demarcation of free speech just being like what the government tells you can do. Because if somebody wants to say something that's highly controversial or even wickedly controversial, look at Bill Burr or comedians, they do it all the time into the confines of comedy.
I think comedians should be protected.
Yeah,
personally.
well, exactly. That's an argument. That's an argument. Until they do something really stupid like Louis C.K., in which case he's controversial, and then he went too far by actually being like, molester or whatever he did. And so now he's done. He's done. But will Bill Burr cross the line? Comedians are protected. It's almost like parody. It's okay to use copyrighted material if you make a parody of it. If you're making fun of something, it's all good, especially if you're good at making fun of it. And why does that seem all good? Why do people make statements? Because we want it. We like it. We freaking think it's hilarious. And so comedy is the avenue to be controversial without getting in trouble. If Gina Carrera had been a comedian and delivered the same words she said in the context on stage, or better yet, just wrote it down and delivered it to Bill Burr and said, "Here, Bill, say this stuff for me," it would have probably been totally like
a little better.
Yeah, it would have gotten away with it. At least, I mean, I'm just surmising this. I'm just theorizing.
Sure.
But my point is simple: is that the platform and the people and the public and the cancel culture or whatever can do all that they want to do, and the person will be like, okay, and they're not free to say what they want to do. They can just go over there and say it over there. Then take. And I don't mean to keep talking,
you're fine.
But there is a few more points, and then I'm done.
Okay.
If you back up in time before technology, but like way back, like you just had towns, and you had a town crier, and you had a town drunk, and you had and those people, and you had a soapbox that anybody could go stand on at a certain time of day and say whatever the hell they wanted, right? That's the whole point of that was free speech. Like that's the platform for that. And the town crier who walked around and just yelled out the news or yelled out whatever issues or whatever the hell he wanted. And if people didn't like it, they would be annoyed by him, but they would just avoid him, right? They didn't have, and he was free to say whatever he wanted. And the town even provided an area, a square, with a box in it for that person to stand so that he wasn't bothering anybody, he or she. And if you wanted to hear what the person had to say, you'd go there and listen. And if you didn't, you'd avoid it. Everybody wins. Free speech is happening. And the person didn't complain about access to the people. It wasn't like, hey, this platform isn't big enough for me. You need to give me a bigger platform, or you can't. That soapbox is nicer than this soapbox, and you're not letting me be on that soapbox. It's like that was never an issue.
Yeah.
And so that's all I'm saying. Because we've got platforms that have such grand reach, and they censor someone because they have policies and guidelines. They're great. They're grand and far-reaching. Is it wrong that people that don't fit that are censored? So this is where this and the final point is then all preference. There's like preference. Classical music and Bach and Beethoven, the greatest composers we might say of all time. They only made money by like writing for the kings and queens and performing and whatever, but there wasn't a lot of money in the industry. That's not relevant to my point. But the thing is, as technology came and we started recording music and delivering and turned it into an enterprise, it wasn't about the art so much. There's an art of creating something that the most people like that we could sell. And in the 50s, blues turned into rock and roll became the thing. And all the musical purists said, that's not music, that's noise. That's noise. And if you compare it to classical music, it's an arguable point. It's not at all as complex as that. But it evolved in its own right to be very complicated and amazing. We had prog rock and all that era, the 70s, and it's incredible. Arguably comparable to classical music, but a completely different genre. But way more popular. Prog rock, even today, and rock and roll, and radio stations that play rock and roll music were, at least until that ended, but through the 90s, were way more popular than radio stations that played classical music. Now, what if you had a popular band like Van Halen or something that decided they wanted, and Billy Joel is actually an example of this, who was a huge pop star with their songs playing on rock radio all the time, wrote and recorded a classical work, and went to the rock radio station and said, hey, play my new song. And they're like, no, we're not playing that. I was like, well, he wouldn't claim that's censorship. They would be like, no, dude, go play that on the classical radio station. That's classical music. It's not this music. That's not what our people want to hear. They don't like it. And he would be like, well, but the classical, not as many people listen to the classical music station. I want my music to be played where most people are listening.
Yeah.
Well, they're listening because they like rock music. So we wouldn't give them something they don't like, then they'll stop listening. Right. The rock and roll station that happens to be the most popular, maybe society is dumbed down by it. That's the nature of human, existence. It's like this is what humans do. It's economics. It's and it's one of the criticisms of capitalism and everything else, right?
Yeah.
But this is a different point altogether than censorship, and it's like, so that's exactly that. They wouldn't do that. Billy Joel, who did ultimately compose a whole classical album, wouldn't cry censorship if KC95, the local rock station, won't play it. He wouldn't, and he's got a place to play it. And the classical people can listen to it there or not. And that's just life, right?
Yeah.
So that's everything I have to say about it.
Okay, sure. No, that's fine. That was a good rant. You definitely put out a lot of good points, and I appreciate it. One thing that I'm always thinking about when it comes to how a company reacts to someone, or specifically one of their employees, talking on maybe a controversial subject is... how do I put this? So when Gina Carrera said what she said, she knew that her employer is not a fan of the way she might think. And her employer has every right to not have her at her company anymore, or at the company anymore. And then, sure, what would you say? Any media coverage is good media coverage?
Oh, that's an old saying that you're like, no publicity. No publicity is bad publicity. Yes. As a matter of fact, people actually make a ploy to start wars between themselves just so they get famous because it hits the news.
That was Tekashi 6ix9ine, the rapper from New York.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. That's a known trick.
Yeah, so that will happen, and they'll blow up for a while, but then they'll go away. I don't know what Gina Carrera's career is going to look like, but I only know her from Star Wars, from The Mandalorian, and I honestly loved her character. I'm sad that they got rid of her, and I don't know what the justification is going to be for getting her out. I don't know if there's going to be a new season or if they just ended The Mandalorian forever, but...
Well, season 3 is supposed to be in the works. I mean,
that's good.
We're all looking for.
I mean,
it was announced.
Forward to it.
Yeah, but so we don't. I don't know. That was all before the Gina Carrera thing. It was announced.
I don't think it'll stop them from making it, but it'll make it a little more.
They'll use a digitized version of her, like they did.
They can, dude. They're good at it. I've been really impressed by how good the artificial Leia's.
They'll be like, we own your digital rights, Gina. We don't need you.
We own your face. We own your face, Gina.
That was in
we
Jim
don't need
Carrey.
You anymore.
Yeah, Jim Carrey's book, Misinformation and Memoirs of Misinformation. With that exact,
I haven't read it.
Yeah, with that exact scenario is in there. It's a fictional book done as a biography. It's awesome.
Yeah. But anyway, something to think about is that, she might get popular for a little bit. Any publicity is good publicity, but only for a while. It's not a very sustainable way of thinking about it. For example... what's his name? Gavin McInnes. In high school, I was into a lot of, I guess, what would you consider like right-wing media. I was interested in the ideas that they had, and since then I've come a little more center, or actually a lot more center. I might even be center-left, but even more than that, I'm libertarian. So if anyone has any questions on my political affiliations, that's what's going on.
There you go.
Voted for Judge Jorgensen.
There you go.
But yeah, so it's not a very sustainable way of doing things because Gavin McInnes, he was removed from YouTube, maybe Instagram, definitely Twitter, and he pretty much got, he just doesn't have any platform anymore. He got on the Joe Rogan podcast, but that was probably the last thing that he really blew up on. And so after that, he's not really in the public eye, or he's not as accessible.
Is there anybody that wants to hear what he has to say?
He was on... I'm sure there is. He was on, what's that one app that actually, funny enough, just got taken off the App Store? What was that called?
Yeah, I don't know.
I wasn't on it. But it was just like it was a similar thing to what Jordan Peterson had, where it's just like anyone can say anything.
Yes. There you go. Well, the reason I asked that question, not to stop you, but is that the people have to want to hear what any given individual has to say.
Following. If
you got a following, then a platform will develop to give. But if your following is not big enough to support that platform, there's no economy for it. And it's just not going to happen.
That's what the argument has been, where it's just like, oh, if someone's going to hear it, then he's not going to go away. He's just going to be somewhere else.
Yeah, right.
But in reality, people are only going to so many platforms.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And if he's not on YouTube anymore, I'm not going to watch him.
Right.
That's just the truth of it. I'm not going to put another bookmark on my Google Chrome page, and so good. Any publicity is good publicity, but that's only sustainable for a little bit of time.
So for Gavin's situation, where do we lay the blame for him being if it sticks, if the idea that he's gone and we're not going to hear from him again? Where do we lay the blame for that to happen? Do we lay the blame on him, on what he said? Well,
he was a highly controversial figure. He definitely said some things that were.
But maybe with someone to say he should be able to say those things. So that's why I'm asking. Because maybe if someone's going to argue that he should be able to say those things, then do we lay the blame on him not having a platform on something else?
I lay it on Google.
Yeah. So you think Google should not have Google should allow him to say those things?
Yeah.
That means if someone's going to say Google should allow any individual to say a certain number of things, then somebody's got to be in a position of discerning what's allowed and what's not. At some point, there's got to be a line.
Yeah.
As we've shown, as anybody who's tried to have a non-censorship platform has found out, it's like that. There's a line somewhere. There's a line. And the person who's discerning where that line is the judge. And that person then becomes the god of that platform, and that's the censor. That's the person we're all complaining about.
Yeah, and that situation, like that way of thinking makes sense when it comes to, it's just we have a line and that's how we can go. But that's not really how the internet works. Or that's not really how people work, even better.
Right.
People don't all work under the same guidelines, so we probably shouldn't expect the internet to work the same way.
No,
since
exactly.
It's governed by people.
That's right.
And so the way around this, I think the only platform that I'm actually pretty familiar with that has done this, in my opinion, the right way is Reddit. I know there's a lot of people that maybe don't like Reddit because there's a lot of communities on there that are questionable and silly or maybe outside of some lines, but they don't get rid of those sites normally unless they're posting anything like federally illegal.
It's a really good example, Reddit, yeah.
Yeah, and so the way Reddit works, for those of you that aren't familiar, is there's a page that is created, or a subreddit it's called, and you have, especially if it gets more popular, there's these people called moderators. And so I guess on the average Reddit, there's probably in between 5 and 10. And those people, out of their own volition, are responsible for the content that's put on that subreddit. And good ideas or good posts, I guess, are upvoted by people who are on the subreddit. As long as you have a Reddit account, then your vote matters, and it's totally free, and it's not really a problem. And so those good votes get put at the top, and good comments on those posts get put at the top. So if there's a bad post, but there's a good take on why that post is bad, then a lot of people will upvote that comment, and so that bad post it's not just going to be like, oh, a bunch of people are gonna go after that and like, oh yeah, I'm going to be a Nazi because this was a great post about Nazism.
Right.
It's going to be, people are going to look at the comment and be like,
Yeah.
this actually doesn't make sense because Nazism is bad for this, this, and this. 600 upvotes, that's going to be seen right next to the video. The video like that is bad is going to be totally getting rid of. So I think Reddit has done a really, really good job. At least from what I understand, there might have been some situations where Reddit messed up, but from what I understand, Reddit does a pretty good job on working with things. But Google doesn't have that thing, since they don't have moderators for the thousands and thousands of channels that are popular and exist and are consumed by a huge percentage of the population.
Right. But that's okay.
It's
in other
tough.
words, that's Google's platform. So because I think you answered my question right in there, because I forgot about Reddit in this conversation. But so if your statement is, well, it's Google's fault for canceling Gavin. What's his last name?
McInnes. McInnes, I believe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
If it's Google's fault for canceling or censoring or whatever they did to him, I don't know. Is it YouTube? Is it YouTube they kicked him off?
They kicked him off everything. He's not on anything.
So if we're saying it's Google's fault for kicking him up, then you've already answered it. Well, he's got Reddit. So in other words, because we were talking about that. Well, does he have a platform now? Well, he's got Reddit. What is he on Reddit?
I don't know. That's the thing. He vanished from my life.
So maybe, well, that's what I'm saying. Maybe it's him. Maybe he's like, oh, screw this, I'm done. Or maybe he doesn't care. Or maybe my point in asking, is there enough people that want to hear what he has to say? It was built around the idea that if enough people want to hear what he has to say, he'll find a platform. And then you brought up Reddit. I was like, oh yeah. Gavin, if enough people care about what he wants to say, should have a pretty popular subreddit. Yeah. Right?
You'd think so.
And if he doesn't, then why? Then so that helps us to dig a little bit deeper and take the blame off of Google. Yeah. And go back to just saying, well, Google is a platform that has guidelines, and there's always somebody deciding, right? Even in Reddit, there's somebody deciding. Google's guidelines are more conservative or safer or whatever than Reddit's might be. And because it's Google, right? It's
well,
like
the blame if something bad happens on Google, or if something is like posted on Google, then it's Google's fault.
Yeah,
or it's Google's like situation to deal with. But on Reddit, if something's posted on Reddit, unless it's something illegal, it's up to the moderators.
Yeah. Well, okay.
So that's the whole difference between the two.
Yeah. Well, so this kind of makes it okay. I mean, if we're in framing of what I was trying to say, is it makes it okay for Google to do. It sounds moderately plausible or acceptable that somebody that's too controversial in whoever's eyes over there might get banned from all of that platform because there's other platforms. Like, please just don't do that here, please. It'd be like Principia and the Lowry boys not actually running fully naked. It's like, please express yourselves, but don't be fully naked. And you guys all, like, intrinsically just kind of get that, right? Yeah. It's just like that.
The issue,
I think.
So what I think when it comes to Gavin McInnes can just have a subreddit. That makes some sense to me. I wish I knew more about why he was kicked off and everything like that.
You'll probably know next time we talk.
I probably will. Yeah. But
so will I. No,
yeah.
I won't.
The issue is that when you go on Reddit to find maybe some of his content, you would have to click on a YouTube link to watch his video.
Oh, and it's not there.
So Reddit doesn't have its own built-in thing to post. Video to posting on. You can use. People are gonna. There's no one listening. I don't matter. I don't care. Imgur.com. That's a video posting service, and so you could probably get a link to Imgur. But it's just the problem. I'm trying to figure out the best way to say this, but the problem is not enough people, not as many people, or at least from the people that would listen to Gavin, are interested in Reddit. It's like there's not a very big like cross pollination of the.
So is that the world's problem? Is that Gavin's followers' problems, or is that Gavin's problem? Whose problem is that?
Well, I mean, if you're a highly controversial figure, you need to have a lot of backup plans. If you're going to get, if you think the things that you might say are going to be taken off YouTube, you can't just feel like you're flying safe and then boom, you get taken off everything, and then your followers don't have a way to follow you. I'm not really sure the situation. I'm not really sure the solution, but
well, if life is a game, we're all playing by the rules to the extent that we intellectualize the rules, with the sense that we interpret the rules. Yeah. And the people that do it best are winning best. So the Joe Rogans are the great examples. It's like he's a guy with a lot of gravitas who kind of you could say he says whatever he wants, but he doesn't. He's a comedian. He's got all the pieces. You know what I mean? He's a big guy. He's an ex-athlete and a fighter type as well, and a nice guy. And he's got a daughter and a wife.
He's my favorite guy on the internet, to be honest.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He's your favorite. He's everybody's favorite guy.
Yeah.
And he swears and does all he's that. He's a real guy like everybody does. But he is doing exactly what you're saying in the sense that he can bring on controversial guests. And I don't know if there's been any we're not behind the scenes. Like, hey, I guess we probably shouldn't post that.
That doesn't happen.
We don't know. Yeah. They say it doesn't happen, but we don't know. It's possible that. I mean, I guess we'd hear about it if they had a guest that was controversial, and then they decided not to air that one that conversation. That person would probably say something, and the world would find out, and the integrity of Joe Rogan's podcast would be shot to hell. And so that probably is correct. It hasn't happened because that's what we count on.
Yeah.
We count on the authenticity of that interview, and somehow, in all of that, Joe Rogan himself has managed to not do anything to get him, and not only not do anything to get himself quote unquote canceled, but he's made hundreds of millions of dollars and upped his game and got taken to Spotify and everything for doing what he does. That is a magical walking of the line between order and chaos.
Yeah.
It's like he's nailing that. And even Jordan Peterson's trying to figure out, and as he says, and I'm trying to figure out why you're so popular. It's like. And Rogan doesn't know.
It's
amazing.
Well, first of all, I mean, I guess I've watched hundreds and hundreds of hours of Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
So don't make. I don't want to be like that guy that gets all of his news from Joe, because that's not really true. But it definitely turns me on to a lot of topics.
Exactly.
Let's see. How do I say this? I think, in my opinion, he's really popular because he's honest about what he believes. He is articulate, he's good at articulating things, but that's off of practice.
Yep.
If you watch his earlier podcast, he's not as good. But I mean, that's kind of why I'm starting this radio show now.
Yeah, practice.
I want to be talking to people my whole life, and this is a good place to start.
Absolutely right.
But yeah, he's honest about what he thinks. He's interested in controversial topics and seeing if there's any fleece to it, and he's interested in trying new things that might be deemed not cool by certain sections of society. Right. And then if it's good to him, then he'll explain why, and more people will be turned on to that.
He's genuine and authentic.
Yes,
and he never goes too far. And I haven't even defined what quote unquote too far is.
Well, I think
but
it's just because he's
know.
a reasonable person.
Yeah, he's there. Can we? That's a soundbite from this show. You just said it. Joe Rogan is a reasonable person, and that built into that statement is saying that people like Gavin McInnes are not reasonable. There's something about whatever Gavin did that got him in the situation that he's in, or anybody that's like that we're complaining about. Oh, it's infringing on my rights for freedom of speech. That they did that under the terms that you just laid out and talking about Rogan would be considered not reasonable.
Well, something that keeps Rogan out of trouble is he has a very similar personality type to me, where he doesn't want to troll people.
Right.
I don't get.
He's reasonable.
Yeah.
He's respectful.
Yeah.
He's a decent human being.
Yeah. I don't get.
Right.
I don't get a huge thrill out of messing with people or
it's not nice.
Or pulling too many pranks.
Right.
Sometimes it's but the thing is it's fun for a big part of the population.
If you're Bill Burr, it's a lot of fun.
It's a lot of fun. If you're Bill Burr, if you're what's his name, Mike Malice, I think his name is. It's a lot of fun. If you're Milo Yiannopoulos, it's a lot of fun.
Right.
If you're that's the thing. There's people that have huge social media traction that like to mess with people because that's how the algorithms work.
Psychoanalyzing how they get away with it and are successful doing that when other people can't do it is what we're talking about here. Yeah. Figuring out where the line of demarcation between all those people and Gavin McInnes or people like him that we don't like that, or some do, but it's I don't want to. No, that's not.
Well,
I don't know.
There's a personality type. I think that
there's something.
So there's a personality type. And it's attracted to trolling people on social media. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but but social media is kind of made for this kind of situation. Yeah. Where if you say something controversial, you're going to get a lot of hits on it, and maybe for that person, there's a huge serotonin or dopamine rush, and they keep on doing it, and maybe they keep on going further and further. similar to how other drugs could work. Like if you just do a little bit of heroin, then when you start in a couple months' time, you'll probably be doing a lot more than a little bit of heroin.
An addictive quality to it.
Yeah,
right.
and so I think social media is a similar thing. And so Joe or myself, like not saying that I am Joe Rogan. I'm not that cool, but
in
not
that
yet.
way,
Not yet.
Yeah, you are that cool.
Thank you. But I just don't want to troll people. I just don't have that that drive.
And people appreciate that, so you're going to have a likelihood of being more popular than somebody who wants to.
In the
troll
long
people.
run,
Right?
My way of thinking might be more sustainable, but less explosive. So if that makes sense.
Yeah,
it's a long distance runner versus a sprinter.
Well, there's one other thing about Joe Rogan that I've observed that's key, and that makes people go like, yeah, this guy's awesome, and that is what people ask celebrities this all the time on late night talk shows. What do they say? How do you deal with the comments about this thing that you said? How do you deal with the comments about all this stuff?
He doesn't read them.
Right.
Yeah.
What does Joe say about that? He goes, "Oh, F that." He goes, "Don't read that." Every time, hardcore. I mean, I watched the Miley Cyrus one. Anybody he talks to that has that issue as a part of their lives, like, don't read that. Just don't read it. Just don't read it. And you think to yourself, oh yeah, right. Yeah, we don't have to read it. Like if it's not even real to him. He doesn't care. It doesn't exist. Yeah. And it's manifested in his experience. It's not. And it doesn't exist in our eyes in his experience either. It's like, if he's not reading them, I'm not reading them. Nobody cares. It's not a thing. It's not in the news. There's no headlines. There's no fake news or real news. There's no news at all about what people say about Joe Rogan because he doesn't care. So there's no resistance from him, and resistance is what creates more of something. If he were to be like, oh, I have to respond to this comment that someone said, it's immediately a news story. But because he ignores it at all, it doesn't even exist. He's completely non-responsive. There's no resistance from him. It doesn't exist for anyone else.
Well, it makes it really easy to be your own person.
It's a huge lesson, man. It's a big, big lesson as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I agree. I got rid of all my social media after listening to a 6-hour-long Joe Rogan episode with Duncan Trussell and him.
Oh, you watched that?
It was the first one to air on Spotify.
Those two guys, man.
They were high out of their mind. They were doing shrooms. They were drinking. They were having a great time. But it was that's not too controversial to say on print because we know that this is what's going on.
We're just describing the world.
We're just describing the world. And it was 6 hours long. And by the end of it, I was working in the mailroom and it finished. And I felt like I didn't need anything anymore, and so I just got rid of all my social media. I felt happy without anything, and so I got rid of all my social media, and I felt a lot better since. And so since then I think I've gone over a pretty big personality change where I don't really care as much what other people think about me. Mm-hmm. I'm able to only section off who I want to be in relationship with who I'm hanging around. Mm-hmm. And so if someone doesn't want to hang around me and they don't like me, it doesn't matter as much. And not to say that I shouldn't be a good person, because I've obviously ran into some things like that. Like, I do need to be a good person. Yeah. But I don't think that's I think it's a lot easier to be a good person without the scrutiny of others.
For lack of better language, it's the difference between being self-aware and self-conscious.
Yeah, I agree. And I still have an issue being self-aware. I don't read people's feelings maybe better than some other of my friends who do, which is good to have friends that read people really well. But I still don't care.
I think that's the reason we're humans. I mean, once we start to wake up to it, it's the practice of learning to become less. Once we wake up at all, it's the Adam and Eve story, right? Yeah. Once we wake up at all, we become self-conscious. Like, oh crap, I'm naked. And then from there, it's the process of overcoming self-consciousness and becoming self-aware. Like, oh yes, I am this.
Yeah.
This is my experience.
More like, why am I worried that I'm naked?
Yeah.
Like, what's the real issue with this?
Right. Well, and once you figure it out, then you're no longer self-conscious. You're self-aware. Mm-hmm. You're at one with yourself and your divine being, the real you. That's I think the nature of the manifested world. Period. Like, that's the end of my sentence.
Yeah. No, that's fine.
Yeah, that's so cool that you stick. I gotta watch that because I haven't watched anything since the Spotify thing. But Duncan Trussell is a freaking genius.
I've also watched hundreds of hours of Duncan. Pretty much, Darin. This is the majority of my day. I do what I need to do. I go to my classes and most of the time, and go back to my room. Yeah. I have 20 minutes. I listen to 20 minutes of either Lex Friedman, Duncan Trussell, Joe Rogan, Joey Diaz.
Oh, God.
And I just listen to them talk, and because they're masters at talking. Masters of articulation, and so I try to, and then I come over to the radio station or talk to myself even, or into my computer, and just try to emulate, like, okay, why are they so good at talking? What can I do? Like, how can I make my storytelling better?
That's beautiful.
So I have a very direct focus right now on being good at associating with people while still being myself.
That's awesome.
So I'm trying to grow while I am in this sandbox world of college.
That's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
You're optimizing the experience.
Yeah.
How can you have a better podcast than 6 hours with Joe Rogan and Duncan Trussell?
I don't know.
There can be
it changed my life. Yeah, honestly, I don't even remember anything from the podcast. I just remember that after I finished it, I was like,
Joe should have
this is all we need. We just need to talk to people.
Yeah, he should have just gone home after that, called up the Spotify execs and said, "I'm sorry, I'm done." And that would have been it. Lights out. I mean, how do you do better? I have watched all the Midnight Gospel episodes at least 2 or 3 times. I've downloaded transcriptions of the script so that I can read them and use them as readings in meetings.
Really? That's great.
I have them on hand in my Google Drive because they're there. It's just like, Midnight Gospel script, and there it is.
Duncan Trussell's a really weird character because not only is he actually like a weird, funky guy, and he's very anti a lot of parts of society that he thinks is really weird, and I think he's reasonable for thinking some parts of society are weird.
Yeah.
But a lot of people that are like him or have interests like him aren't extremely articulate people, or aren't interested in sharing their opinion on things because they have a worry about, okay, I'll lose my job if I have this opinion, or my family won't look at me the same, or something like that. But Duncan doesn't really care as much, and he's also very articulate, and he can talk for a long time and consistently, and he's a driven person. He's interested in what he does. So
it's so fascinating. I'd love to.
Yeah, I'm glad that you have an interest in Duncan Trussell as well. I think he's a great guy.
I sit and watch Midnight Gospel, and I just focus on one element of it for the whole past, and then go back and watch the episode again and focus on a different element. Because there's like 2 or 3 completely disparate things going on.
My favorite episode is actually the first episode of Midnight Gospel.
Oh,
where
the politician. And
he got boosted into, it was the president. He gets boosted into this universe where there's a zombie apocalypse, and they're just destroying these zombies all around them, but they're talking in completely calm terms.
About Buddha and Zen.
And there's no such thing as good or bad drugs. There's just like they all have a different situation in this universe. So I don't know.
And of course, the first one sticks because it's the first one.
It's good that it was the first one.
I was just like, okay, this is blowing.
This is a great show.
What is going on here?
Yeah, you have both. But that's the thing about that show, Midnight Gospel. You have both a sense of what the heck is going on, and I know exactly what's going on.
And all of his podcasts that source that thing are available. You can go back and listen to them all. His website. I mean, it took 7 years or something before they decided to make that. I mean,
Duncan Trussell's Family Hour. Shout out, Duncan Trussell's Family Hour.
Oh yeah, that's
what it's called.
That's what it's called.
God, available on Spotify.
There's so much content out there, man. That's what's going to make.
I'm glad that I exist in this generation where I just have everything in front of me.
Yeah, you certainly do.
Yeah.
Figuring out what it takes to rise to the top of the massive heap of content, I guess, that everybody has access. Everybody has access to all the content. So it's like unlimited people standing on soapboxes, and you can see any of them at any given moment by just shifting your focus.
Yeah.
How do you rise to the top of that?
I don't know. You gotta. I mean, that's the thing. I wish I could just spend all my energy. Okay, this is my plan after college. I get enough money to move to Austin, which I actually already have saved up. I can live in Austin for maybe like 2 months in a very small apartment.
Okay.
But I go to Austin.
Yeah.
I find a jiu-jitsu school.
Yes.
I do jiu-jitsu every day.
Yeah.
I try to find a job at a radio station or a small podcast or something that I could be a producer for, because I already have some technical ability.
Sure.
I need to build on it because I'm a junior in college, and that's literally my major. So
there it is.
I'm working on that, but and see if I can have a following. But the whole situation that everything is focused on is how can I be financially I guess supportive of myself.
Yeah,
and so I don't know how that's gonna go, but if I can do that, then I think I'm gonna be happy for at least maybe my 5-year plan.
Yeah, the universe will take care of you. The key is to not need anything.
Yeah.
So your plan is great. You just make sure you stay I thought about this today, as a matter of fact, of a student that graduated 2014 or 15 or I don't know, doesn't matter.
Who was it? Do you know?
I could use names. I just didn't want to be like tell my story about this person and have it be like, he's talking.
I understand. You can tell me after the radio show then. Sure.
But because it wasn't that big of a deal, but I didn't want to like make anybody go. But the point is, this person developed skills in the recording studio and really wanted to be. And this is all good, by the way. The journey, you don't need. This is how life is. We know this, so it's all good. But I'm just exempling, and because it made me think. They wanted to get into music producing and writing, recording, mixing, and so
for music. You said,
for music, okay. And so they got the opportunity. Because of college and a degree, applied, got a job at a company in L.A. and was like, yes, got the job, moved out to L.A. The job is a full-time job, so now I was working all day, and then now and living with friends and got studio equipment and do some recording and stuff. But I don't know what's happened. But then eventually girlfriend and now marriage, and it's like you can't not have the job. You gotta work. So it's hard to pursue your quote-unquote dream.
Mm-hmm. Well, I want my dream to be in line with my job.
Well, right. So what I was realizing is, I was like, how would that have worked differently? And what is the story for people that make it doing things that are like that, artistic, like the people that become famous because of being record producers or mixers on album stuff? And what happens is they live on nothing. They don't need anything. They live with friends for minimal dollar. They don't get married. They don't hold full-time jobs, or maybe they do, but they're also spending all of their nights interning or hanging out at the studio with a band or with friends, or they make any number of things that led to. And the more it's just like a raffle. Yeah. The more things they do beyond their job, the more opportunity for one of those things to blow up, and that because they develop a momentum in that thing, either become famous or more. Then it turns into paid because they become known for it, right? Yeah. So if you can get away with not having a full-time job, and better yet, not needing one, like live so minimally that you can somehow be sustained by just doing the thing that you love, like hanging. In his case, it would have been hanging out in recording studios, networking, meeting people all day, like not having to go to work somehow. Yeah. Odds of him landing successfully in a recording studio would have been higher. He still wouldn't have made money. He might have worked in that recording studio for 5 years, but he might have been in a lot of bands, met a lot of recording artists, learned a lot of stuff. And maybe 5 to 10 years, he would become a guy that people called for that skill. And then 5 years from that, he would become a guy that is known in the industry for doing that thing. And, of course, is making money at that point. But in order to get there and to really raise the odds of getting there, he would have had to have sacrificed everything up front by not needing anything to sustain, or the absolute minimum possible to sustain yourself. And since he didn't do that, which is fine, that's the path. Yeah. It'd be really hard to. You might always be this person who says, "Oh, I wish I'd have taken that trip to Mecca." That's in the book, The Alchemist. It's like, this exact storyline is in the book, The Alchemist. You might be that person that never. You might always think, "Oh, I always wanted to be that, but it didn't have." That's not how life went. I wish I had, or I done. And maybe you won't say that. Maybe you'll be like, "No, my wife and kids are way better, but now I'm working for the man, and that's just it. And I never did develop that thing because, as Jordan Peterson points out, is the thing that makes humans different from any other animals is we learned about delayed gratification. So we have to learn that we can put aside anything we might want now to provide us greater returns for something in the future. Yeah. And also the idea that you do that, you take that trip to Mecca, you do that stuff when you can, you sacrifice what you could have now that seems cool and cool, and easy, so that you acquire much more. It's just like going to college. I mean, you spend all the money and the time to get a degree, but society's established that as a thing that you just really need to freaking do that. Yeah. But that wasn't always the case. And so for people that did it, it was like, that's delayed gratification. I'm going to spend time in school and spend a lot of money to get a certificate that's going to give me a whole lot more opportunity in the future. It's the same idea. So that's what it comes down to, is if you want to further reinforce the odds that you succeed doing what you want to do, you need to not need anything. Be willing to sacrifice everything you can and optimize your experience doing that thing. Okay. There you go.
Thank you, Darin Pierce.
I can see the time, so I'm gonna put a period on my sentence right there and say no more.
That's good. Well, this has been good. I think we've talked about a lot of good things. I got a life lessons that I'm definitely going to take with me for a long time because I'm trying to find the best way to get through my 5-year plan.
Yeah, your plan's good. It's going to be awesome.
Thank you. It's funny. That's what a lot of people tell me. I can't believe it until it happens, though.
Well, yeah. You'll report back.
I'd love to have you on the show again, Darin.
Anytime.
I see you obviously like
Almost
twice a
every
week
day.
at least.
Yeah, at least.
And
we'll
great.
be talking about this show now for weeks.
We will.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for listening to Christian Blaney's Cockpit. These episodes always fly by, and I wish I actually had kind of a bigger time slot on some of these episodes, but right now I got to keep it to an hour. Thanks for listening, and have a great rest of your day. Peace.